Welcome to the Fuck the Stigma podcast. Today I have Amanda Lewis here with me.
What's up?
What's up? I've known Amanda for about a year now, and I'm surprised I'm just now having you on the podcast. You have a pretty crazy story on how your substance abuse recovery came about.
Yeah.
And I wanted to talk about you and share your story, put it out there, your experience with that, where you're at now. So you kind of got started to get sober through the show Intervention.
Yes.
Yeah, so I made sure to watch your episode right before this, and it's crazy. And you said it's only a 40-minute episode, but it only captures such a small glimpse of what happened. So yeah, tell me a little bit about it.
I mean, it was probably the craziest experience of my life, because where I was prior to that, I was in a really dark place, literally, living in the tunnels underneath Las Vegas. Some people call us the mole people. Some people say we're the most dangerous people in Las Vegas. Somebody recently said I was a ninja turtle, which I think really checks out. Just living in a shell, just being a shell of a human, and actually eating pizza almost every night from 7-Eleven. And yeah, so anyway, but the reality is that we're just people, that have been through some unfortunate circumstances. Me personally, a lot of trauma, a lot of things growing up that had happened. The biggest trauma for me was what happened with my son. And that is a big part of the story on Intervention. They kind of make that the main focus. And so with the trauma and things just continuing to happen throughout my life, that's where I ended up. And yeah, it's crazy looking back on it now, how just one thing led to another.
To kind of break that down a little bit, when did you start using substances, and what kind of, if you're comfortable to opening up about the trauma?
Oh, for sure. I started using at a very young age. Probably around 12 years old is when I started to really get into things, but it was more trying to fit in with the cool kids and hanging out after school in the woods and smoking cigarettes and whatever and drinking on the weekends. So trauma stuff, and I don't talk a whole lot about the childhood trauma because and my mom, she is aware of some of this stuff, but my mom, she gets really defensive when I talk about some of these things, and some of the stuff she doesn't even really know about. And I don't feel the need anymore to talk to her about certain things because she's also in recovery now. She's been sober for 22 years.
So yeah, I saw that. That's really dope. I want to ask you about what it's like having a mom in recovery as well. But there was something in your Intervention episode that I think you said or she said. She was you described your childhood as not being that great. I think I think you said bad childhood, and then when your mom was being interviewed, it said, "Oh, she had a pretty good childhood." And I think it's crazy that a parent can have a whole different perspective on their child, how their child grew up. My parents, for example, they were "Yeah, dude, she had a great childhood," and I kind of agree. But they don't acknowledge that I experienced trauma. I felt so uncomfortable in my skin. So, how would you overall describe your childhood, and maybe why does your mom view it that way, and then you another way?
Well, I think she spent a lot of our childhood, me and my siblings, she was, drinking all the time, and there was a lot of partying going on. So things that would happen behind closed doors when she wasn't, she might have been physically present and in another room, there was things going down that she didn't know about. And for whatever reason, my brother, who's the closest in age, and, we've been through a lot of the same stuff because, we have the same dad, and our dad, who was never present, there's a lot of abandonment issues there. So being raised by a single parent who was an alcoholic, it wasn't easy. Mm-hmm. And so things that happen, mom's boyfriends, at one point it was a step cousin that had molested me, and my brother and my other cousin were in the room. And yeah, I've never actually talked about that ever.
Really?
So it's kind of the first time.
Not even in any therapy?
I've talked with my sponsor about it.
Okay. Wait, so you haven't, isn't it really? So you haven't talked about it in therapy? Do you think there's some more of that sexual trauma that you need to, I mean, I have no idea on how to cope with sexual trauma, but I just know I just feel it's something that needs to possibly come out at some point.
I'm sure it's been brought up to my therapist at some point, but I don't know. Like, I just have this like feeling like, because like I spent so many years like resenting family members, like my brother, and my mom, but like I've gotten to a point in my recovery where I don't feel like I don't need to like talk about those things with them or like bring it up and like bring up old stuff, because like I've been able to like practice forgiveness and but yeah, it's definitely something that should be talked about. And I talk about it with my sponsor, and I'm sure it's been talked about with. But like as far as like sharing it publicly, like sharing at meetings and stuff like that, actually, this is literally like the first time I
How
brought
does it
that up.
feel?
Like, ooh. So yeah, just a lot of traumatic events that happened growing up that kind of led to, at one point I was going to church. I started doing that when I was like 8 years old. And I think looking back on it, it was kind of like a place where I felt comfort and like connection, the Sunday school teachers there and the pastor's wife I became very close with. So I just felt like loved,
Church felt like a safe space.
Yeah, because I didn't have that at home and I didn't have that in school. I was picked on and bullied a lot. So eventually, I got to be like around the age of 12. That's when I kind of started to use and like hang out with like the wrong crowd of kids. And it's because I started to really question like the concept of like a higher power, right? Like if God loved us so much, then why would he let bad things happen to good people? And
Do you
so,
think
like,
you have an answer to that now?
I think so.
What's the answer?
I think God doesn't hurt people. People hurt
There
people.
we go.
And even more so, like we hurt ourselves more than anybody. And
I actually agree. It's self-will, like we do it to each other.
yeah, self-will. It's a curse and a blessing at the same time, But like, it sucks that bad things do happen to people in this world, because it does cause a lot of trauma. But also, like, what sucks even more is that it like leads into this like cycle of like we start like hurting ourselves, and then we become like the bully, and like we become the people that like hurt us.
Yeah.
And it's not that we
Almost like as like almost like as defensing, like we become that person so we don't get attacked.
right.
But yeah.
So yeah, like I, as I got older and I started to get into more trouble, and I started getting like locked up and stuff like that. Like,
What did you like start getting like locked up for? Like around what age did that start happening?
the first time I think was in 2012 when I got my DUI.
Oh,
And that was they talk about that in the intervention too. And that was a point in my life where I finally was just like, you know what? Fuck this, I'm out, and I moved to Las Vegas. And so then it was on and cracking from there,
so you got your DUI at like what age?
I was 24 or 25 years old. It was,
And at this point, you're just like what kind of like substances? Like, how does your substance abuse kind of look?
I was drinking a lot. There wasn't like so much the other drugs, that came more later. Like I did do other drugs, but it wasn't like a thing, you know what I mean? Or at least I don't think I was like addicted at the time. And I didn't even see in that moment too, like the drinking, like becoming like such an issue.
Yeah.
But the problem was that with what happened with my son and all the things, like I didn't go seek therapy. I didn't do the things, that I've learned to do now that I'm in recovery. So pretty much what happens is like you stuff that stuff down and you try to forget about it, or at least that's what I did. And that wasn't healthy. So like the drinking started becoming more and more of a thing.
Like
and
that's your way of coping, right? Like at that point in time.
yeah, and because alcohol is like, it's not
Socially
illegal,
acceptable,
it's
yeah.
socially acceptable. So I didn't see it as a problem then.
What happened to your son, for those that don't know?
So so when I got pregnant at 18 years old, the guy that I was with, we were together from like the age of 14 till the incident had happened. And like my mom, she hates his guts, but he was like the love of my life, right? Like, and
Of course.
he was a little bit older. So like I look at it now as like, ew, like
How much older?
5-6 years older.
Yeah.
I mean, I was 14 when we started dating. So like, yeah,
It was an issue, like kind of an issue.
Yeah.
But you were blind in love.
blind in love. And also like it was a source of like comfort and love and somebody that made me feel like
And
okay
it was
and
consensual.
protected. Yeah.
Is it? But like legally, is it consensual?
Absolutely not. And and that was like my mom got sober right around the time we started dating. So she was like trying to fight that.
Yeah.
But I was like, the more she tried to become a parent in my life, the more I was like, no, absolutely not. And
Yeah.
like I chose to just like go that route. And so
Okay.
I ended up getting pregnant at 18. And for me, I was like, okay, this is it. Like I finally get to like have a purpose in life. I finally get to like just give all my love to this like baby. And and so like in my mind, I'm planning all these things like what,
You're getting
I
excited.
get to be like the parent that like I felt like I didn't have. And so when my son was about 3 weeks old, it was like the first time that I got to like kind of just sleep in a little bit, or I was supposed to be able to sleep in a little, and he was going to stay home and watch our son. And um, yeah, the thing that they don't talk about in intervention is like what actually like the sequence of events. Like so like I woke up to just like a really loud crashing sound, like, and was like, what the fuck? So I walked out to the living room to see what that noise was, and I saw him holding my son up, and I said, what happened? And he said, well, he was throwing up, it was the sound of my foot hitting the ground. And I was like, okay, well, that checks out, because we were like on the second floor and he's a big dude. So I was like, okay, well, here, let me take him, and like I'm like looking around the room, I'm looking at him, like I don't see any throw up anywhere, but like you don't think like, because he had never been violent before, you just don't think these kinds of things like could
Yeah.
really happen to you, right? So like I'm holding my son, I'm watching him for a little while, and I start to notice like the seizures, and I'm like, what the fuck? So I call my mom right away, because my mom, she knew about, like, she was like an EEG tech, so she worked with like in a place where like she knew what like epilepsy and like seizures were. So I was like, mom, what is this? And so she's like, oh my God, take him to the hospital right now. So like we cruise to the hospital. Next thing I know, like my son's like needing brain surgery and all these things. And they start to like question us and say like, what happened? And so like this investigation happened, and they were like, okay, we're going to have to place him in foster care. This is what's going to happen. And so I don't remember how long like that investigation was going on for, but basically, what it came down to is like he wasn't admitting to anything happening. There was no actual evidence other than like the injuries that my son had, like the bleeding in his brain. He had a broken leg. And so, but we lived together. So like every night, like I would go home with this guy, and as he started to become more and more suspicious, like he was refusing lie detector tests and drug tests and stuff. And I'm like, what's really going on? So like this one night we go home, and I'm like questioning him about it, right? And he ended up attacking me.
Wait,
And
physically or verbally?
physically,
Oh,
he pushed me down and put his hands around my neck and started choking me. And like I just remember like I'm gonna die, right? And by the grace of God, like these little neighbor kids, there was like a 14-year-old and like a 16-year-old. I don't know how our door just happened to be unlocked, and they just heard like the commotion, and
damn.
so they came running in and got him off of me, and I took off running out the door. And the first officer to show up was the one that was like investigating the case. And it's crazy because she had just told me like that day or the day before, she said, be careful, because and oftentimes like these cases, like the mom is the next victim. So she took me back to the station. They took pictures of my neck. There was literally like handprints
Damn.
on my neck. And so that's how they got him.
So he
And
ended up getting
yeah,
charged for it?
kind of sort of not yeah. So his parents, who had a lot of money, they were able to get him like a really good lawyer. And so like the two attempted murder charges they were going to try to give him, he got out of, and it was like a couple felonies, like one for like assault on me, and then with our son. And so he went to prison for like 4 years. And when he got out, my mom actually called me one day, and she's like, oh my God, like turn on the news. And so I turn on the news, and there's him, right? And like he had done it again to another little baby. And I think that was like the moment where like shit really, because like I was like starting to do better in life. Like I got this really good job, like and like trying to just like move on with my life, right? And so like that happened, and then like social workers and people are starting to call me and say, hey, we need you to come back and like testify against him again. And what had happened that time is they gave him like a plea bargain that if he pled guilty to that case, that they would drop the case with my son. So he ended up doing like only 2 years that time. There is a news article about it if you look it up, but I'll show you later.
Okay.
So reopening all those wounds, that's when I think things really started to get bad. And shortly after that is when I got the DUI, and I was just like, you know what? I lost my job because of it. I had a friend that was living in Vegas, so I was just like, I'm out of here. But the problem is, like my mom says in the episode, you know, like you can't run away from your problems 100%. Or your feelings. Like they're gonna follow you wherever you go.
Yeah, we think like the locate, like the geographics.
Yeah,
like it's this place. That's the issue. Like not me.
Yeah.
Even though like certain issues will like continue to follow you.
Yeah. And it did.
Yeah. So right now you're like, fuck it, let's go to Vegas.
Yeah.
What was your plan?
I didn't have one. But for a little while, you know, I felt like, because, you know, the glitz and the glamour and the things, you know, and like everything's like really easily accessible, and like it seemed like a cool life for a while.
Yeah, like for some people, like LA is like, oh, I'm gonna get everything. My career started out there, like it's gonna be great. Yeah.
So needless to say, I mean, it's Sin City, and things started to really like slowly unravel and fall apart for me. This is where like the unfortunate circumstances come in, like aside from like the traumatic experiences, like so like the property manager where I lived taking off with my money, the boyfriend that I had going off to prison. So like, you know, financial issues, like I lost my home. And so like that's how I ended up homeless. Like,
oh wait, so what happened? So property manager like stole your money?
I went to go pay her the rent, and she took off the next day. Like we never, like I gave her cash, right? Because we lived in like this like little slum, whatever, you know, and I thought we were tight, you know, and she took off. And so like, I'm like trying to call the corporate management regional, like they're like, whatever. The fire marshal ended up coming and kicking me out, and I'm like on the sidewalk. I had my cats, like my babies, all my things, like, so I ended up living in like a field, like this desert field for a little while. And then I got arrested for trespassing. And when they arrested me that time, I had previous warrants from other things. Stupid shit. But anyway, so I ended up going to jail for a little while. And when I got out, I literally had nothing. I had the clothes that I was wearing. Like by the time I got out, like it was cold outside, and I was not dressed for that weather. It was like freezing rain. I had like one flip flop on because the other one broke. And so like I put plastic bags on my feet and like posted up behind a dumpster. And that's where I was, like just like dying, you know? And
that's insane.
I tried to go get help from like Help of Southern Nevada, and there's some other places, but like the problem with that is like they sent me on my way with like a bottle of water and was like, that's not the kind of services we provide. I'm like, whoa, what? And so then like trying to go places to like social security office, things like that, they're like, well, you don't have an ID. And so then I tried to go get my ID, and they're like, you don't have a social, you don't have a birth certificate. I didn't have any of my stuff.
Yeah.
So I'm like getting the runaround, like
this is fucked.
You just,
dude.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really crazy because, like, I've always wondered how people end up homeless. You know what I mean? And kind of just, like, actually hearing, like, someone's story about it, that's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
It was, like, really, like, unfortunate events.
Yeah, it sucks because, like, people look at us like, you know, criminals and just, like, these bad people. But it's really just, like, we get to a point where it's, like, we feel just so hopeless, and like what else can we do, you know? And I, you know, as a matter of fact, like my neighbor that was down in the tunnels, so that's how I ended up in the tunnels, by the way. I had some people that were like, you know what, come get warm, we'll take care of you.
When you were behind the dumpster?
Yeah, they kept coming by, and they
you made like friends
there. They were actually friends from like the place I used to live, so like they knew me like prior to that, but they were living in the tunnels at that point. So they're like, yeah, come on. And so I was like, all right. So,
and then what are the tunnels for those that don't know?
So the tunnels are meant to be like storm tunnels. So like in Vegas, it's like there can be flash floods at any point in time. Like it could be sunny outside, and you would never, like, if you don't know like what the weather is going to be, Yeah, you just gotta be really careful because like flash floods happen.
Yeah, and like I'm thinking Las Vegas, it never rains.
No, it does, and when it does, it's pretty gnarly, and people die down there in those tunnels.
Damn.
It's because that water comes and it's fast, and you got to get the hell out of there as quickly as possible. Um, so yeah, so those are the tunnels, but they actually go for miles and miles, like hundreds of miles, and each little like so there's like tunnels that go under like different hotels, right? And so like each little tunnel has like its own name for like the people, like the community of people that's like there. So like I was like the Hard Rock Tunnel, which is now the Virgin Hotel. So it's like the joke is like the only virgin in Vegas. So it's kind of funny, but anyway, so that was the tunnel I lived in. We had our own little community of people there. We kind of like looked out for each other. So yeah, it was like a place where I kind of felt safe.
Yeah, you start feeling safe.
You know, I had resources and things that kept me alive. And yeah, my neighbor, who was a veteran, he was like my best friend the whole time.
And yeah, the other thing of like, there's a lot of homeless veterans.
Yeah.
And not a lot of support for those who come back from like serving or whatever. Like I've heard a lot about it. I do need to like research it more. But they're like the amount of homeless, like there's like nonprofits dedicated to homeless veterans. Like it's a real issue.
Yeah. So, you know, I'm so grateful for that experience though, because like honestly, you know, prior to all of those things happening, like when I was just, I don't want to say normal, because like, what is that even? But like when I was just a person in this world, like doing like what people do, you know, working and stuff, like I could have never imagined that life. But like that's what happened. That's my reality.
You've lived like three different lives in one lifetime.
Yeah. But like the people that I've met down there, you know, the dangerous people, the mole people, you know, like those are my friends. Like those are the people that like numerous times like pushed me out of the tunnels in shopping carts when the floods were coming and I was panicking so bad that I couldn't even move, you know, like freezing up because I didn't know what the hell to do. And the ones that would help feed me and like they kept me alive, you know, like
yeah, they looked out for you. It really felt like a community.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So those are people, you know, that just like me, you know, and anybody else that have just been through some shit in their lives and ended up where they are. And it's tough now because like I actually went back there around Thanksgiving. I had like a 14-hour layover there, and I got up with my Holy Smoke people, the ones that actually helped get me out of the tunnels. And we did like a late night mission. And how crazy is it that like I saw the same people down there just doing the same thing, living the same life. Like they didn't get the help that I got. Like what are the fucking odds, you know, that I was able to get out of there.
Yeah. And you were in the tunnels for how long?
About 2.5 years.
2.5 years. And then you said the Holy Smoke. Like, what is Holy Smoke?
So Holy Smoke Misfit Missionaries, they are a nonprofit organization. And also people that I like Doc and Teresa, I look at them as kind of like parents, you know. I became very close with them, but basically like they provided a lot of resources for us, whether it be food, water, batteries, because down in the tunnels, like that's kind of a necessity. We need to have some sort of light. So we'd have like battery, like headlamps and stuff like that. So they bring us batteries, clothes, even like the needle exchange people, like they would bring down there, and just like hope, you know, like giving us just like a little bit of hope and helping us like in any way that they can. So that's Holy Smoke Misfit Missionaries, and
they just help out, give out resources to those, the homeless population.
Yeah.
When did intervention come along in your story?
So I'm not entirely sure exactly how like that happened, but like I want to say that so basically like it was right at the beginning of the pandemic, and I had the boyfriend that I had, not Mario, who's on the episode. That was actually the friend I went to for help after like all hell broke loose. But this boyfriend that I had, he got bit by a dog and he ended up in the hospital, and he was the one that actually contacted my mom back home in Minnesota, because my mom had been posting on Facebook for some time and was like, hey, does anybody know where my daughter is?
Yeah, and then
like,
throughout this whole time, you had no connection with anybody you previously knew.
Like I would see the post on Facebook, but like I was so just like just lost and broken and hopeless, and like, it's just like at a point in my life where like I didn't, and I didn't want to burden them also,
Yeah,
my
you
mom,
felt,
she's
yeah.
not in a position really where she's able to like help me and like get her, at that time I was 33, 33-year-old daughter out of that situation, right? So but I knew she was trying to get a hold of me. Anyway, so this guy, this boyfriend that I had at the time, he reached out to her and was like, "Hey, I know where your daughter is. You need to get a hold of these people." So that's where Holy Smoke came in, and my mom got a hold of them. I don't know how A&E got involved. It's like they reached out to them or how it happened. But anyway, um, so they set that all up. And it's crazy, like the timing just was so impeccable because like I just lost my boyfriend. The strip shut down because of the pandemic. Like a flood had came and like took away like my camp that I had, like pretty solid camp at that time that I would actually just sit in when the floods came because it was like so like solid that like I thought it was indestructible, but I was able to get out of the tunnel that time during that flood. And so here I am just like nothing, and so they're like, they come to me and they're like, "Hey, you mind like doing this little documentary?" Like, and it wasn't the first time that had happened. We
Really?
had Huffington Post do an article once, which really pissed me off because they just pretty much exploited us and like made us look like these like shitty people, and like where's the solution. So I was like
Yeah.
really hesitant, but I was so close with like Doc and Teresa and the organization that I was like, okay,
Yeah.
I'll do it. I didn't know it was intervention,
Yeah.
like, they're like, just our friends from like California. And I'm like, what's it about? They're like, oh, addiction and homelessness. And I was like, all right, bet I'll,
Yeah.
I'll
Yeah.
talk to him, I guess, By like day one, I was already like, I had asked the director. I didn't know he was the director at the time, but I was like, is this an intervention? And he was like, no, like, what are you
The
talking about?
fuck?
Like, but I had no idea, like my mom was already involved, and so like that's kind of how it started. But like there was a lot of things that happened in that couple days when they started filming. Like people don't want cameras down in the tunnels, they want to be left alone. So there was like
Yeah.
a fight that broke out and like things that happened that it just got to the point it was like overwhelming for me, and I ended up disappearing. Like I took, I hit the streets
Yeah.
and
Yeah. A good portion of your intervention episode is them looking for you. Yeah.
they were so close because I remember like the first couple days I was actually still in the tunnels. Like the day one where they came and like knocked on my little camp, I was in there the whole time, but I was like, I don't want to
Oh.
talk to these people, so I hid out in there. They waited for like 6 hours till my neighbor finally came and was like, yeah, she's not coming, like you guys need to kick rocks, like she's not going to come back until she knows you guys are gone, like this isn't like her, so finally they left and I was like, thank you.
Yeah.
And then like the next day they showed up again and I was like already taken off down the tunnel, but the tunnels go, it's like a maze down there. So like I was like pew, pew, down the tunnels but I could hear them coming. They're like, Amanda. Like I'd hear them get closer and I would skirt down the next
Yeah.
tunnel, so that was
You're
like
on
the
the
first
run.
first couple days. After that I was like, fuck this. I'm going out. Of course I have a lot of hiding places out on the strip too. So and how crazy is it that like the day that my intervention was supposed to happen, like they were already ready to just like shut it down and say like, we're not going to do this, like she's not going to show up, like we give up. But somebody, I think it was my interventionist assistant that said, no, just like one more day, like let's just stay one more day. And so they all agreed to stay one more day. And that was the day that I got arrested. And
What'd you get arrested for?
I had actually ran into a friend, and so like those disability scooters you see everywhere, like those are actually really easy to steal. And so like he had stolen a couple of them, and all you had to do is just like hit the dope man up and he'll come and grab them and pay you cash for them. So he's like, I got these 2 scooters and then like I got this wallet with these like cards, and I was like, okay, sick, let's go. So we were like on our way to go like do whatever, like, and we stopped at a 7-Eleven, and he tried to use like the cards, and I guess that like red flagged whatever.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
so the cashier was like, yo, the cops just called and they want us to like hold you, so like you guys should probably get the fuck out of here. And we're like, shit. So we're like taking off on this, on these like disability scooters.
Yeah, they're
We
slow. They're pretty
get
slow.
a few blocks down the street, and the cop pulls up behind us, and my friend just took off running. I don't think he ever got caught either. But like I just felt like I could have easily gotten away because that cop took off chasing him, and like I was just like, what do I do now?
Yeah.
Like I could have walked away and like I don't know, but I was like so just like ready to just give up.
Give
I
up.
was like,
Yeah. You're
I'm
done.
done. So I sat there and I waited for the other cops to show up, and they arrested me for all the things. So like false credit cards, like fake identity theft, and stolen scooters, like
Yeah.
grand what do you
Grand
call
Theft
it?
Auto?
Not grand theft auto, but grand larceny, I think it's called, or
Oh.
something like that. So I was like facing like 4 felonies and 2 misdemeanors, and so when I got locked up, I was like, I'm not getting out anytime soon, and I was actually okay with that because I was just like, I don't even
Yeah.
I'm just done, you know.
Giving up.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get it.
So barely made it through the booking process, and they're like, you're going to court. And I was like, what? So I show up there and there's a lawyer there. That's when I really knew like something was about to happen. And so they released me on my own recognizance, which was like wild because like I've been arrested for way less shit and
Held longer.
yeah. So I was like, oh man, what's happening here? Like I don't have a lawyer. Like what?
It was weird.
So I get released.
Yeah, so like at this point, like things are just like aligning. Like your family, your family with the intervention like crew, they're like about to give up. They can't find you. Things lead you out to like, and you end up getting arrested for some stupid shit, and then now they're releasing you, oddly.
Yeah.
And then like, okay,
I still in my mind was not like I knew something was up, but like I just couldn't fathom it being like something that big, right? So like I'm like walking out these doors, definitely not expecting to see my mom, my sister, and my best friend from back home standing there, and then there's Dave Marlin, the interventionist, and then these like black SUVs, like just like it was like something from a movie, right? They just like pull up and everybody starts getting out of the car, and I'm like, what the fuck is going on,
Yeah.
you know? And so they're like, yeah, let's talk, you know? And I was like, oh shit. Okay, now this is like, but I still even then didn't even think it was like that big of a like a thing, you know?
like you didn't know it was the intervention. Like it was just you were confused.
Crazy,
Yeah.
right? Like, and I was like, yo, can I just like run back to the tunnel real quick? They're like, no, you're gonna go right now. But it was like the most beautiful thing, you know, like that experience. And what's craziest, like, is my sister ended up taking a picture of like the cross streets that were right there where the intervention happened, which was Lewis and First Street. And like my last name is Lewis, right? So it's like, even though the intervention wasn't supposed to originally happen there, like, I feel like that was like God, like a literal sign from
100%.
God. Like I was exactly where I was supposed to be.
Exactly where you, and that's so beautiful.
It's wild.
You know, like every little thing that happened was like meant to happen.
Exactly.
Like the fights, the bullshit, the getting arrested, running from the cops, and yeah, all of that.
Boyfriend getting bit by a random stray dog.
Yeah.
And like crazy, like all these things, like
And that's like what gives me a lot of faith, like in life today. Like things like that, I'm like, yeah, like I have faith
me too.
that things like kind of just work out and play out for a reason, for you. You either learn something or have like a valuable experience.
Like even throughout like the end, like towards the end of like you know, being in active addiction, like I kept seeing like these signs, you know, like I was always staring at the ground, so like I kept finding these heart-shaped, like perfect heart-shaped rocks, and I was like, why, you know? And I was like, am I just crazy, you know? But I feel like that was too just like signs from the universe. And it was like telling me, you know, just like you're not done.
Yeah.
Don't give up. And then that happened. So I was like,
So
wow.
what's it kind of, and then like, so after they hooked you up with like going to treatment, what does it feel like with having your intervention episode online for anybody to see, and having they have you, like they filmed you like smoking meth, you know what I mean? Like it's on TV, it's on the internet. Like how does that feel to be on there? Like are you grateful for it? Does it feel weird?
For a little while, I think it definitely was like, yeah, it was uncomfortable and embarrassing because like that was like rock bottom, and like the entire world saw that. And but like the cool thing was that there was like people that were like reaching out to me from like all over the world. Like they're like shout out from like New Zealand and
Oh,
like
it's so dope.
South Africa and like all these places, and I was like, they're like, go Amanda. And so like I was getting all these like strangers just like giving me like encouragement and just like hope, and so like that was really cool, you know. But like yeah, the experience itself with that being like put on TV, and like there's like weird feelings about it too, because like intervention, although I'm grateful that I was able to get out of that situation, like A&E doesn't do a whole lot,
They
like
just want to get the film, kind of. Yeah, I get.
so yeah, like
Like
basically.
in terms of like your recovery and treatment, like they were just like, all right, let's send her there.
And they don't even pay for the treatment. The treatment center pays for it. They scholarship because they get like the marketing or
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah, yeah.
So they make a deal and say, hey, we'll like put your treatment center like on television if you will scholarship this person. And so really like A&E doesn't really do a whole lot. And so like there's kind of weird feelings about that, because like when I was finishing up my treatment, like there was no plan. They were just like, okay, you're done. Like,
Like
and I was
now,
like,
like you could have ended up homeless again.
yeah,
You know
that's
what I
what
mean?
I thought was gonna happen,
Yeah.
or like I, could maybe go back and live on my mom's couch, but like that, I tried that once before, and like, um, it wasn't, yeah, that didn't work out, and I just didn't see what my options were, and I ended up getting a GoFundMe account, which was so helpful. I ended up exceeding like the goal that I was going for. So like between like that and then just like some stimulus checks that I got, like I was able to just get myself like at least like an ID and like start like picking up the pieces, right? But I remember one of the producers of the show had called me and was like, yo, you should get a hold of this girl. She was on intervention a few years ago. Like maybe she can help you. Like she's doing really well. And so I ended up calling this girl, and she's like, let me call another person. And she starts networking, like, so
Telephone.
I get a call from Jesse Brown. Am
Yeah.
I allowed to like drop names? But
Jesse Brown.
Jesse Brown, shout out. So Jessie calls me and she's like, look, we're going to send you to Stairways, but like, this is what it's going to be, right? Like, you're going to work the steps, you're going to get a sponsor, you're going to take all the suggestions, you're going to do all the things. And like, my first thought was like, fuck that. Like, I don't do that, cause like,
You weren't open to doing the steps or the
I
program?
mean, like, that was just like my first initial thought, but like there was something different at that point, and like I think what it was is like there was hope. Like I was out of that like
Yeah.
misery finally, and I was like, I don't want to go back to that, so I'm like, fuck it, I'm gonna do the thing. And like sending me to a women's sober living, I was like, what? Like, and I hang out with all these fucking whatever, but those women ended up being like some of my best friends.
Yeah.
And working the steps ended up being just like such a magical experience. Like, who would have thought?
Yeah, like well, now you have like over 2 years. It's your 31 months or something
Today.
Yeah, let's go. Congrats.
Thank you.
So we kind of wait. Something you didn't touch on was like how did meth get in the picture? Because that was your drug of choice.
Yeah, so that happened because I mean it wasn't like I had done it before, like in Minnesota, like whatever, how I said like
Little dabble.
little dabble, yeah. But like how it really happened was like after I became homeless, like it's like everywhere in Vegas. And like all the people I was like associated with were doing it, and like I was like afraid to go to sleep. I was hungry, and so they were like, do this, and I was like, okay. And
Yeah.
that was what did it for me. Like
It became a safety blanket. Like
exactly.
I can stay up. I can make sure I'm aware of all my surroundings, and I don't have to worry about food.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's kind of how it started, and then it just became a thing,
Yeah.
every day. And it's not like I really enjoyed it or wanted to do it. It was like you
You
said,
felt like you had to.
yeah.
Insane.
It was
What
crazy.
do you have to like spit out there in terms of like awareness to like stigma, homelessness, or substance abuse?
It sucks to think like, there's people that will say like, the unhoused, or somebody recently said like residentially challenged, or even in between houses from the other
Yeah,
day.
yeah. The wording of okay.
But like I really feel like it's not going to matter like how you change it up, like
The wording.
it's like people need to like be educated on it and understand like these are just human beings. Like I'm somebody's daughter, I'm a sister, I'm a niece, I'm a friend, I'm like we're like all of these things. And so like living in Vegas, like, just going back to that really quick, like if you walk into a casino and you don't look like a tourist, or like you're there to spend money, like immediately, like you're out the door, like, or you're getting arrested for trespassing, like that's such like a stigma, and like all we're trying to do is just like go get some water, like we're dehydrated out there and it's hot, in the desert. And, so it's just like, we're not bad people, we're just not like, we make mistakes, and we get put in a situation where like sometimes we just don't feel like we have a choice. And I just feel like there should be more awareness out there and more education and like more resources, because I tried and I couldn't get the help. What happens when you lose everything and you don't have an ID, or like the things you need to get back on your feet? How are you supposed to do that when nobody's willing to help you? So yeah, I'm really hoping to just build some more awareness and educate people on that.
How are you doing that today? I mean, you're doing it by doing this, of course.
This is part of it, yeah. Actually, I'm very blessed because Doc, who is the founder of Holy Smoke, is actually in LA now. Like, he moved to LA. So the people that were helping him run it in Vegas are now like, who were actually homeless at one point, who he helped get out of the tunnels. And so now they're taking over. So they're running the show in Vegas, and now Doc's trying to start a thing here. And so I'm helping him with that. He asked if I would like be on the board with him, whatever that means. I'm not sure. But I'm like, yeah, let's do it, because like I get an opportunity to like give back and like show people like, hey, it's crazy. Like being in, like when I went to the tunnels the last time, they said, you people, they kept saying you people. And I was like, look, I'm one of you guys, like I was there. I understand. Like we are really no different. I know what you guys do for each other.
They even view you in a different way now.
Yeah. You people. I'm like, what?
The stigma goes back and forth.
Yeah.
100%.
But like they say in like a good way, they're like, oh, we're so grateful for you people. And I'm like, but listen, like, there's hope. So like, I just want to spread hope, like not only in like my community, through like sharing at meetings and just like sponsoring other women, which is such an amazing experience. It is a great experience. I love sponsoring. It's not always convenient, but
yeah, I don't think it should be.
No, it shouldn't be. But like, yeah, just bringing hope and trying to build some awareness and educate people is really what I live for now. I feel like God has finally given me this purpose in life that I've always been searching for. Yeah. And I'm not going to take it for granted.
Yeah, dude. I'm sure there's a whole different level of gratitude now.
Oh my gosh.
Like we were just talking, like you're driving a Cadillac now.
Can you believe it? That was my 2-year present to myself. I worked really hard and I was very patient, but yeah, I was like, I am getting this Cadillac for my 2 years. And
that's amazing, dude. That's so cool.
Yeah, and we finally just moved out. I was in sober living for a little over 2 years, and finally just recently in the last couple of months moved out. And
like now you're paying like real rent, have your own room.
Dude, I'm on a lease. Like, what? I have credit now. Like I have credit cards. Like, I have this amazing job, like, and I'm in school. So, going to school for addiction studies. So I get to like continue to help addicts, like even at work. Like, so like everywhere I'm at, like whether it's work or like, at meetings, like I always feel like I'm doing something that serves a purpose. So
it's amazing. Is there anything else you want to put out there?
Well, if nobody has told you guys today, that they love you, I love you.
I love you, Amanda. Thank you so much for coming on here.
Thanks for having me.
It's been a pleasure. I love this one. I love this episode.
Hell yeah.